My name is Julian Walsh. This is my sign name. I volunteer at Vicdeaf, making historical videos. I've been deaf since 18 months of age, and I became interested in filmmaking in 8mm film when I was a teenager. And that was around in the 1960s. Then I joined the Deaf Film Society, where I would film theatre shows in halls, and we'd also show the films in halls, so a lot of people enjoyed that. I also filmed a lot of sporting competitions, including the 2005 Deaf Olympic Games in Melbourne. So, digitising deaf history. Vicdeaf received a grant in 2013 from the Public Records Office of Victoria and Museums Australia, Victoria. This project was awarded so that Vicdeaf could ensure the ongoing preservation of deaf history for future generations. So the preservation was of photographs, letters, documents and videos. Some do you know questions. Why do you think deaf people use a big D when referring to deaf people in writing? The big capital D. We use a capital D because it represents our rich culture that we are very proud of, and we have our own language called Auslan. And an interesting fact, Auslan is not yet recognised as an official language by the Australian government. In other countries such as New Zealand, it is recognised as New Zealand Sign Language is recognised, but we don't have that in Australia. So, my work at Vicdeaf, I digitise videos and place them into the Vicdeaf Historical Archives. They're also uploaded to the Vicdeaf YouTube account and Facebook account. This ensures that the deaf community can see the videos at any time they like. About our film archives. The films I'm about to show you were collected by Vicdeaf. Sometimes deaf people would ask film crews to come along and record the event for historical and memento purposes. In the 1920s, 2-minute news segments were featured at cinemas every week. And you can see through these films the evolution of Australian Sign Language. It has changed over the past 100 years, and that's really well documented through these videos. So here we go. This is the Deaf Mission, the first deaf building. It was in Flinders Street in Melbourne. This was the Deaf Mission. They had a church, a meeting place, a library for deaf people to congregate. The Deaf Mission bought other land at Blackburn, 11 miles from Melbourne. So this is the Blackburn property. It was a boarding house for men and women. Next door to that was a lake, and then next door, adjacent to that, was a flower farm. And so we had garden parties, we'd invite special guests, we'd have picnics, and this is where deaf people met each other and congregated in Blackburn. You can see Ernest Abraham's signing. He's actually interpreting. He was a social worker. This is where a picnic was being held and we had tug of war. You can see people's fingers falling to each other. That's how we used to sign previous to now. This is a deaf-blind man, and this is Abraham, and talking to him with tactile sign language. Abraham was also a welfare officer. This is the flower farm that was next to the lake. So deaf people would work in growing and collecting flowers and selling them at the markets. And this is how deaf people raised money. Some people lived at the Blackburn hostel and worked at the flower farm as well. So just a short way away. So to get from the hostel to the flower farm, you would go across the lake. Some people like to go across the lake. They prefer that rather than walking all the way around the lake. In 1909, this is the Blackburn train station, and this is the train arriving, where the women's wing was built, and this is the opening of the women's wing, and people disembarking from the train to go to the opening of the women's wing, which is about 500 metres away. So this is the celebration, a deaf celebration of the women's wing. You can see their outfits, they're really fantastic, aren't they? So Frederick J. Rose, he is the man who founded the deaf school in Melbourne, and he met with Ernest Abrahams, who is standing up, and F.J. Rose is sitting down. This was filmed in the 1920s. F.J. Rose died not long after this. He's 90 years of age here. So here they are having a chat. So Abrahams is the welfare officer, and F.J. Rose is the school principal. Now we've got our sporting events. We had a biannual cricket match, and it's held in January, and they're saying Happy New Year here. So we've got South Australia versus New South Wales, or Victoria versus Queensland. It starts from Boxing Day and runs to the New Year. So here we have the deaf cricket teams. I think it's somewhere near the city. I'm guessing Paran, just by the housing and the spires. I think it's Paran. And that would be near the deaf school, where it is now on St Kilda Road. Across, we had a deaf team who would play against mainstream teams. And there would be news makers come along and film and put them up on in the cinema for people to watch. So this is a team against Coburg. This is Deaf Man signing, and he's saying how many points they won by. And these are the deaf women watching, having a bit of fun, I think. In the 1930s, Flinders Street was sold, the Flinders Street building was sold, and deaf mission to move to Jolimont. So we invited the Governor-General of Victoria to open the Jolimont building, Mr. Summers, the Governor-General of Victoria. So he's giving a presentation. We have a very important minister, and the interpreter is Mr. Abrams. Here he is now signing. And they're laying a stone, a plaque, because the building hadn't actually finished by the time they opened the building and celebrated its future. This is in the 1930s. Now this film is of the Lord's Prayer, so this would be shown in halls for deaf people so that they could access the Lord's Prayer. And I won't show you all of the Lord's Prayer, but this is just a short summary of that. Hallowed be thy name. Such beautiful signing. Now we have a ladies group, sign singing a hymn. And this happened quite often, that women would get together and sign hymns. This is in 1949. This is the Deaf Fete at Jolimont. They would have a fete every year where deaf people would attend. So here's the church that you can see. That still stands at Jolimont. And this is up the back of the Jolimont building, the Deaf Society. You can see some people there. They're very well known in the deaf community. They have a market, they have a fete. And so from the 1950s, they would have an annual fete. The man you saw the signing there was Mr. Reynolds. A few weeks after that, we would have the Ladies Guild work with children, do some welfare work, and this is all at the Deaf Society, Victoria. It's gorgeous. Then after that, we would have the Australian Deaf Games, and that's Mr. Reynolds again. He is a deaf welfare officer. What is he? Just, I don't know. Anyway. You can see this is the first day of the Games, the Australian Deaf Games, and you can see the deaf people would provide tours for interstate visitors, and people were very excited to meet each other from interstate because they wouldn't meet each other that often. And they would catch buses and go to Luna Park, have a tour of Melbourne. Beautiful. Here they are playing tennis. This competition is happening at Royal Park. It'll be New South Wales versus Queensland, various interstate competitions. And this is them having a good time after. Then the next day they would play cricket. It'll be an interstate competition held at Royal Park again. Here we've got the doubles game and the man is spelling out their names. Here we have the cricket team and some visitors. That woman's bedazzled by the camera. Here we have the Queensland women's team where the man is finger spelling their names out. Here we have a bus tour. I think they're going to Sandringham Beach. There we go. They've arrived in the city and having a tour of Melbourne City. Once the games are concluded, we have the trophy presentation, Mr. Reynolds again. And this building was built in 1955. It's the new hall of the Deaf Club, Deaf Society, and it was launched by Sir Brooks, the Governor-General of Victoria. He opened the building. Here is a deaf football team from Victoria travelling to South Australia to play in the South Australian football team. So the news would come along, film it and put it onto TV, because TV was around at this time. This is the Victorian team. You can see the referee uses a white flag rather than a whistle. And that's the end of that. Thank you. Any questions? Was it interesting?
Well, that's an amazing presentation. I just wanted to talk about the language changes over the years and how Auslan's changed. Can you tell us a little bit more about the older generation's finger spelling? I think it was in the and it's different now. It's changed over time. So also, I mean, that was a fantastic talk. It was really wonderful. So I hope everyone enjoyed it. Congratulations.
Yep, come on.
I'm really excited to see that. That was wonderful. I'm wondering how many videos and scripts do you have in your archives?
We have quite a lot. We have 10mm, 50mm and 8mm, but 50mm have been reduced to 10mm. Oh, we have 50. We had quite a lot of duplicate videos because several people would film the same event, and so we didn't need to keep all the duplicates, but we had 50 films.
Are you going to continue to archive some of that material?
Yeah. I think I do recall when I was a boy at the deaf school they would show films in colour, but I know they're not in the archives right now. I want to find them. They could be at the deaf school, but I know, I have a feeling that they're there out there somewhere. I'm going to find them. Also, did you recall where it said the Deaf Mission bought the first building in Flinders Street? There was a stone plaque that's been kept, and it's just in this room, and it says 1903. That's the first Deaf Mission plaque for the Deaf Mission plaque for the first building in 1903. So we've kept that, and you can see above that there's the 1955 plaque. That's when they opened the hall in Jolimont, so that plaque has been kept. And it says Sir Dallas Brooks. He was a very popular well-liked Governor-General of Victoria. The big one. There's two I see that I recognise. With Mr. Ernest Abraham, he was around from the 1900s to 1930s. He was well known because as a good friend of the deaf. Because Reynolds was a deaf man and he gave birth to a son and named him after Ernest Abrahams and named him Ernest Abraham Reynolds. And there he is there. EA means Ernest Abraham. So this guy had a son and he became a teacher at BSDC and he was my teacher. So you can see history in action. He's still alive now, he's 87 years old, my teacher. Any more questions? I think we're done. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.